I've got news for you. You are hypnotized every day. And if you don't know when you're being hypnotized, genuinely, I mean this truthfully, you could lose your freedom, your friends, your family, even your health or your life. Today in Conscious Times, we're going to look at a very popular documentary about a twin flame cult. And we're going to break down how hypnosis is used to abuse. Believe it or not, this can happen to anyone. All that, plus we're going to have a look at Taylor Swift's design and our Taylor Swift's human design. And I have with me here Kevin Du Toit and Carson Doherty. You guys join me. Welcome to the show,
Hi.
everyone.
Hello, Trisha.
Well, welcome again to Conscious Times. This is our brand new show, and this is going to be your source for energy updates. Oops, and we're
Sorry about
see, can you
that.
tell it's our first show? That's me. Live producing
I
our
liked
first
it. Extra
show.
magical.
Like the fairy dust. See how it goes. So, Conscious Times is your source for energy updates and all the news about the consciousness age, aka the age of personal and spiritual sovereignty. And so, I'm Trisha Carr, and I have with me the amazing Carson Doherty, and I have Kevin Du Toit, and we are going to be getting into these subjects and having the best time. So, welcome you two. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so
Thank you,
excited.
Trisha.
We've already been having preliminary conversations back and forth among ourselves. Well, Carson and I are having that like every day, all day. But
Daily.
today we're going to be talking about this popular documentary series. It's on Netflix and it's called Escaping the Twin Flames Universe. It's a documentary series and people have been talking about it all over the place. Now, it came out a few months ago at the time that we were actually broadcasting this. We're going to be analyzing what went wrong for the people who were effectively, genuinely abused by this high pressure group. Now, high pressure group is another way to say cult, but it's a less emotionally loaded way to say it. When there's pressure to do and be a certain way in this group. Now, honestly, we can see that that happens in a lot of different kinds of situations, whether they are purportedly spiritual or not. We're going to talk about exactly how hypnosis is used and how anyone really could fall prey to someone who uses hypnosis as an abuser. And the reason that we three are here to talk about it is because we are all hypnotherapists and we're all very spiritual people. We're all spiritual seekers. So I want to get into that. And before we do, I want to say hello to those of you who are here live. Hi, Michelle. And oh, hi, nice to see you, Rocky. And I want to invite you guys who are coming in live to go ahead, post some comments on the chat in the chat there. Tell us where you're not coming in from, but yeah, watching from. Any thoughts that if you did see this, if you have any thoughts about it, and then of course if you have any questions about anything that we're saying. So let's look at what we're talking about here. Escaping Twin Flames. So here's what it is. What you'll find it on Netflix, and the things. Hi Tracy, nice to see you. I'm talking to the people on the chat there. So it was really interesting, Carson. I remember when I was telling you, oh, did you watch the Twin Flames yet? Twin Flame thing yet? And you're like, well, should I have my husband watch, or is he going to be like scared that spiritual stuff is going to like be dangerous? Do you remember me saying that?
When I first moved to LA, he was positive I was going to join a spiritual cult. Now he's fine. But
So
took 8 years.
yeah, but the thing is, it's interesting. And do you remember what I said to you? I said if he worries about that when he sees it, do you remember what I told you? Just
No.
tell. I said, well, just remind him that dentists have raped people while they've been on gas. Does that mean dentistry is bad?
Right.
Right? Because the thing about these tools that we three know about and are taught, hypnosis, and hypnosis is really the blanket category of meditation, of altering your consciousness in any way. It all falls under the umbrella of hypnosis. Hypnosis is a very powerful tool, just like well, what I said to a doctor once when she asked me if hypnosis was safe, because she asked me she asked me what I did, and I said, I'm a hypnotherapist. It's the easiest thing for me to tell her instead of saying spiritual teacher and everything. And she goes, oh, is that safe? And I said, well, let me ask you something,
Wow.
doctor. Is it safe to cut people open with knives? Once again, knives are powerful tools in the hand of a healer and a surgeon. Then yes, they're very useful. So let's get into the twin flames business, shall we? Now,
Can't wait.
this features a couple that started this, Jeff, and what is her name? I forget. Carson.
Shalia, her
Yeah.
Megan is her
Her
give
birth name,
biological birth name.
her
That's the word.
biological name.
I even have a hard time pronouncing her first, her new name.
Shalia.
Shalia. Yeah.
Shalia, yeah. And so I also want to frame this in the sense that I actually know people having a twin flame experience who are very grounded. And so if I could put that in, I don't have that experience. And maybe some of us, maybe people who are here don't have that experience. I just want to suggest that even the twin flame paradigm experience that people are having maybe isn't the problem here. Yeah, I
Right.
don't know, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
about
I agree
the
with you.
way,
Yeah.
yeah, it's about abusers
Hmm.
using powerful tools to abuse. So, in this, we have seen that Jeff especially, I mean, Shalia is a part of it, but Jeff is really the one who's forward in this, is using hypnosis to coerce people, to have them give up a lot of their sovereignty to the point where some of these people actually it's a very touchy situation because they toward the end of this documentary, people are having transgender they're transitioning in their gender, and they never had that experience before. They never had that. It was told to them that they needed to
They were
do it.
told.
They were
Mhm.
Right.
and so this and then in the documentary too, they have a gender studies expert who understands transgender psychology and also says, now I'm worried that people are going to think this is the transgender experience. I thought that was so astute. And of course I didn't even think, of course
I
I didn't.
loved that part.
And
Mhm.
it was
She
impressive.
discredits
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. She was. Yeah. That it was good.
So tell me, what are some things that you noticed there about how they were, the different tactics they were using to abuse people and, to actually have them believe things about themselves and the world that just were, at the end of the day, unhealthy and dangerous?
Do you want to start with the way he would speak to them? Do you want to start with mirroring exercise?
Oh
I
my gosh,
mean, the
yes.
list goes on.
All of
Mm.
it. The mirror exercise, which again, the mirror
Katie Byron?
exercise,
Very
yes,
similar to?
it's very
Yeah,
similar.
Byron Katie Amy.
Byron Katie,
Right.
right. So to explain, Carson, will you explain the mirror exercise that they used?
Yeah, so anytime you're having a problem with someone, I am mad at that. You're supposed to turn it back into yourself. So taking blame for in this version of it, not the Byron Katie one,
Mhm.
for anything. And that will break you down. That's like one of that starts you right in there.
Right, and because what a proper mirror exercise or something along the lines, that's what they called it, and they act, by the way, they act like they invented it. I
Yeah,
love
which
people that do
no.
that. A lot of people that have these high pressure groups or cults, they are sourcing really just ancient or somehow established tools, and they claim that they invented them. And so, as with many things, education is always one of the best ways to help us to stay safe. But in a proper function, what this exercise would do is to help us to align with the law of correspondence, which is one of the spiritual laws of the Kabbalah, and a lot of us just know it by the phrase of as above, so below, as within, so without. But it's done with
Hmm.
compassion, it's done with curiosity, and it's done with your capacity to take responsibility, meaning what can I respond to in this situation? Not blame, as Carson pointed out. He said, well, the reason that's happening is because you are, all the things you're complaining about, you've done this, you're doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they would just keep pushing people to that. Anytime they were like, I don't like the way, let's, for example, I don't feel comfortable with the way Jeff spoke to me in the classroom meeting. Well, that's because you speak to yourself. He would take no responsibility for it.
Could not take any criticism,
Hmm.
couldn't take anything and be like, well, that's you. He'd always
Mhm.
turn it back on them. Very aggressively.
And by the
And
way,
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
And Trisha, coming from a coaching background,
Yes.
the when you grow, when there's growth involved, is when you take accountability.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
he really isn't growing. He's still staying in that elementary kind of threshold. He hasn't had a breakthrough, and then he's just throwing it back onto them because he really doesn't know.
Mhm.
He thinks he knows. He thinks that, but because he thinks doesn't mean he does know. He doesn't have the experience, and sadly, all of these soulmate seeking individuals are crumbling because of the constant bombardment of them to go seek and find, because he's giving them instructions and he's delegating to them, but he really doesn't know. He doesn't.
No. And
That's what I found.
he isn't doing it. First of all,
No.
you can't a coach, a teacher, a healer, there is a certain, their sweet spot is sort of relative to their own personal development and inquiry, but it's not limited to it. It's truly not, especially when we're using tools such as these tools that really, if, for a lack of a better way to say it, or maybe it's the perfect way to say it, these tools belong to God, transformational tools like hypnosis or something like a spiritual law exercise, like the mirror exercise. Those are potent, those work. Just like steel is made from something in nature, that belongs to nature, that belongs to the earth, that belongs to source. So there is something that the tools can work anyway, and it is the power of the resonance field created between the individuals, the coach or healer, and the individual that allows the person to be able to do even more than that person, the coach or the person in the authority.
Mm.
So you're not really limited to it, but if you're definitely limited to your intentions, to the intentions of the coach
Mm.
or the healer. And if the intention of the coach or healer is that you have a great healing, then that's kind of unlimited, right? But if your
Yes.
intentions of the coach or healer is they'll pay me money and they'll listen to what I say and they'll stroke my ego, then there's where our limitation comes in, I think.
You hit the nail on the head, Trisha. There's a
Yeah.
limitation, exactly. Stroking his ego. That's
Mm.
all he wanted. And the minute you kind of try to hinder that, of course, he had Megan Shalea kind of then by his side attacking you. So you can't win. You're going to constantly lose because you got all of them against you. And you have this audience on the Zooms that they have these daily, weekly,
Mm.
inundated Zoom conferences. So you're constantly drinking the Kool-Aid,
Mhm.
looking for answers, seeking solutions which aren't there. That's why you keep coming back for more, because there is no resolution.
And in these daily meetings, people would come vulnerable and they would,
Mm.
I mean, if you watch this, they would be berated. They would be emotionally abused.
Completely
They would be
belittled. Yeah.
belittled and humiliated. So this is all of this, as we know, we three, I mean, this is actually creating a state of fight flight. And when you have an emotional experience, a strong emotional experience, you are in hypnosis. Not the kind of positive hypnosis that helps us to make transformation.
Right.
Would you, one
Right.
of you like to explain that is also a kind of hypnosis, to be in that fight flight or that emotional charge?
Yeah, anytime we're getting overloaded or sent into fight
Mhm.
flight, we escape and suddenly we take everything in as absolute truth. We only run old patterns, and we are much more susceptible to cult leaders or um, Jeff. But
Or
the
Jeff's.
when someone comes in already in fight or flight, which so many of
Mm.
our clients will, and so many of
Mm.
these people were coming in like that already.
Mhm.
They've experienced heartbreak. They can't figure out why this is working. It's nerve-wracking being in a meeting for the first time. You are already seeing these people as authority, and our job would be to take them out and then bring them lower. But he just gets right in there and starts, I mean, manipulating for.
And the reason I laugh, because it's so primitive, which is so
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah.
Because we understand, we have the knowledge and we have the understand what's going on. They don't, which and he completely takes advantage of that.
Mhm.
That's why this is so cruel.
Yes.
And that's why this documentary was so phenomenal. That's why so many more people need to see it, to really get a deep understanding of how it's used against you instead of for you. As
Mm.
hypnotherapists, our goal is to empower, to desensitize the negativity and empower the positive. But that's what we're doing. We're speaking that message right now. Most people don't see that. They just kind of see a person, you know, being a chicken on a stage. That's not meant to be that way.
Yeah.
That's not our goal. Our goal is to empower people to, bring the true consciousness out of them, Trisha. The
Mhm.
real, authentic, their authentic being of who they are.
Mhm. And exactly, Carson mentioned, our job, we take them out of that fight flight state And then we
mm,
take them back in with intention even deeper into hypnosis, into that positive state. And then that's how we're actually to be able to have a positive effect on the subconscious mind.
mm,
In this case, what what was happening here, these people come with in a vulnerable state, in fight flight already. They come with desperately seeking answers, and this person, Jeff, is actually exhibiting, also he's exhibiting classic narcissistic traits.
Mhm.
He is creating narratives. He is just not apologizing. That's what Carson said. Anytime he doesn't take any responsibility. I mean, there are so many red flags all over the place, and these people are so vulnerable, and they just keep being broken down. Their character keeps being broken down, which I think that sometimes people look at that, or they look at the person at the stage hypnosis thing, and the person's quacking like a chicken, and they're like, well, that could never happen to me. Only some people can be hypnotized. But in fact, and we all are hypnotized every single
mhm,
day.
Mhm.
And if we're in a if any time that we're in a state where we're worried for our life, when our life is not literally threatened, or even just worried that we're not going to be able to pay the rent or something like that, we actually are feeling like we're dying.
mm,
That's just, that'll prove to us that anyone can be convinced or lulled into something like this, unless we keep our wits about us. Recognize red flags. How does it feel in your body? How does it feel in your body? And
mm.
those are really important. So some of the red flags, again, this guy, Jeff, talking about how, oh, they actually did use age regression to hypnosis in this, which is something that I know a lot of people don't recognize. That's a
Right.
no-no, right, Kevin? That's a no-no.
It's a no, no, no.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the. I would say it's forbidden, because Trisha, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy.
Yeah.
So when you start playing those games, it's gonna pick up in your present day DNA somewhere, maybe from a book you were read to as a child, or a story you were told, or a movie you watched. So there's so much data there that's going to tap into that really isn't real. But your
Mhm.
subconscious doesn't know that. Your consciousness does.
Yes. Your
But your
whole consciousness. Yeah.
absolutely. So to me, it's forbidden. Again, that's why they're so suggestible. They come to him desperate. Then they
Mhm.
come to Twin Flames desperate. Then he uses that against them for manipulation instead of for empowerment.
Yes.
And they're
Instead
gonna
of
be open to his suggestions of if he's like, "Well, did something happen when you were young with your
oh,
father?"
oh,
And you're like, you wanna please, you think that they have the answer, which is the big thing, like, being vulnerable and needing someone to have the solution. He's like, "I have the solution. This is what's
Mhm.
going on." Then they're like, "Yeah, that is what happened. I won't talk to my family anymore."
Mhm. So memories are not facts. This is
mm,
well
mm,
known and well established in all forms of psychology, and of course in the hypnotherapeutic models that we use. Memories aren't facts. They are important to us, but they are not facts. Every time we source a memory, we color it. We're going through lenses of what the now is. And then, of course, in a scenario where someone is inducing you into a hypnotic state and then leading you, as Carson said. Now, this happens, honestly, this happens in interrogation rooms there's so many
That's
people
why they
who have
can't do
gone
it
to jail.
anymore.
Exactly, where people have been coerced into false confessions. Um, I'm just going to say this because it's very clear, and I know some people really love this person. Teal Swan does this. If you watch the documentary series on Hulu, The Deep End, is that what it's called?
Mhm. It's so
And
clear. You watch it and
she
you're like, "That's exactly what she's doing."
Yep, they use age regression to implant false memories so that they can rescue them from that. So I like that we brought this up because age regression is not a therapeutic tool. Now, for if you lost your wedding ring in your home, you can have a hypnotherapist help you to go back to yesterday. That's different. We're talking about age regression into something to, especially with the intention to find something bad that happened to you.
Yep, going back to a traumatic event. Also, no, no, no.
No. Huge, huge red flag. That's one red flag. So they implanted negative suggest about childhood sexual abuse. I got to tell you, these cults, they don't even have brand new ideas. They use this age regression and planting suggestions of childhood sexual abuse to separate them from their family, because that's one marker of a high pressure group, is separating them from family and friends, to isolate them.
I think
They
Nexium did it too, from
Yes,
what I remember,
Nexium
yeah.
did it. Pretty much all of them. They do some form that will definitely separate you from your family and your friends.
mhm,
And it's important to understand, they use a lot of meditation, which is hypnosis, and that this is that doesn't mean that meditation, hypnosis, or someone guiding you in it, if these tools can have you do something that dramatic, then what when they are actually put into the right frame, when they're used with the best intention.
Oh,
Now,
I could
right?
only imagine how powerful that would be. Absolutely, yeah.
If they had any, I mean, they have no integrity. They
Mm.
also have no
Right.
training. That's another problem. Now,
Huge problem.
Right.
speaking of,
A book. There's a book that he he
I bet he
philosophizes
didn't
about,
even
but
read a book. Oh, you know,
exactly, yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
I
Because
mean, I don't know.
if he knew the truth, the inside would come out. It's not
right,
though. Yeah,
right,
just like the animated movie about the emotions, Inside Out.
yeah,
You know,
I
when you
love that film.
yeah, you know, we're adults seeing the world through children's eyes because we
Hmm.
still are living in those emotional trials and tribulations as children from the age of 0 to 8.
Hmm.
So a lot of people today sadly are living, even though they're adults, they're seeing life through through their eyes as children.
Hmm. Right, especially we're in that fight flight state. You know,
Mm,
we regress to that, and then we're looking for authority. We're looking for a savior. Yes, and another red flag here is they were working out of scope, which is something we understand. We are trained to work in scope, meaning that if someone has a mental or medical issue, that we don't work with them unless or until we have
mm,
we're actually working on the team with their psychologist, psychiatrist, or medical doctor. We don't just get in there and someone says, someone comes in and they seem to they have PTSD, they have depression, they have some other kind of medical issue, and we just start working on it. They were doing this. They were also working out of scope in the sense that they weren't trained, and they were all doing therapy. They're not therapists
mm.
of any kind, and they were all doing therapy. So that's once again someone doing surgery who's not a trained surgeon.
You would never do that.
Right. And
Just as
another
dangerous.
another thing that this is a little beyond hypnosis. They always talked, Shalia and Jeff, they were talking about how they channeled something. They were like, oh, we channeled that these two people will be twin flames. We
Right.
channeled that last night, but they didn't demonstrate themselves channeling. So this is in the spiritual metaphysical realm. I've seen Carson channel. Carson sees me channel. You can feel it when you witness the
Oh
channeling.
yeah.
You can feel it. And but if I just go and say, I channeled this, that means it has authority,
Ah, no, that's true. I didn't
you
see
know?
any evidence. That's very true. I didn't pick up on that, Trisha, but that's true. There was no evidence in the documentary of any proof that they had. Just hearsay. That's all it
They just said
was.
it. Yeah. Just said, but they say they use this word because it's supposed to invoke like a godlike authority. But if you're not even witnessing it, it just means that they're saying something. You know what I mean? Like they're just
Mm,
made something up, right?
That reminds me, I won't bring up the spiritual teacher, but you're like, she always just talks about after the channeling session. And I never
Hmm.
get to feel into that. And you can. It's this energy, and you feel these chills, and you just get this heart opening, and you're just like, whew, that came from somewhere else. Versus, hey, this is what I channeled earlier.
Right.
Oh,
I'm like, I mean, even if it were written, well, I channel poetry. I mean, and it feels different,
fairy
right? When
poetry.
you read it. Yeah,
Oh
fairy
my
poetry.
God. It's this is my favorite thing that Trisha does. And it's like the fairy one is like someone's going like this to you. And it's just like all right here. And it's going when you just read it, you don't even have to hear her saying it.
mm,
Yeah, exactly. So when you read thank you, by the way, that's very sweet. But when you read something that someone has written, that's another way you could feel oh, this is inspired, is another way to say that something is channeled. But if someone just shows up to a meeting and says, I channeled last night from Saint Germain or Jesus that you need to get surgery and marry this other person that you're not attracted to at all. That's just that guy saying it.
Yeah. And come to think
ye-
about it, even if I am being like, oh, this is what I heard the other day, suddenly I'm in that energy and I'll just, even if it's just a sentence, and I'm like, you can feel it in just a
Hmm.
sentence of me
the,
repeating it.
there's a sincerity there. What
Hmm.
they've done is they've taken everything sacred and just pawned it. That's what
Yeah.
they've done.
Mm. I
You
love
know,
that bonded.
this life is so sacred. And what they've gone ahead and they've just completely just pawned all the sacredness, all the sacred things in life to their benefit, which is so say instead of to the client. When we have clients, and I'm in sessions, that moment in my time, that client is the most important person in my life
Yes.
because the 55 or the 90-minute sessions I have with them is for their transformation, not for mine. the benefit is seeing them transfer. Yes, of course, is a reward for me, but that's because I'm skilled. We're advanced in our craft, but
Mhm.
we take it very serious. This isn't a fun and games. So yeah,
They
very interesting.
and so how Kevin just presented that right there, that's almost like that's kinda like channeling because I was in a session with Kevin, I felt how much he means the transformation is for them, and if I call up this documentary and these people who have bad intentions, the stark contrast, right?
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah, you could feel the heart versus just this the energy is coming from here. Just
Mhm.
feels very manipulative
Yes,
and
absolutely.
not open. It's like I would love to look at his human design, but we
I know we
don't have
we don't have his
that.
well, we maybe it is out there, we can check, maybe we'll mention it next time. So another thing that happened in this twin flame high pressure group cult, the Twin Flame Universe documentary series, just to remind everyone what we're talking about, which is on Netflix. Here, I'll pop this up in the screen
And
again.
there's a second one on Amazon, although we are focusing on the Netflix one. But
Yeah,
if you
the second
love it,
yeah,
go
the
watch
second one,
that.
just
Yeah.
if you want more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that they did, which is one of the classics for these really dangerous high pressure groups, is control their physical body. And the Jeff of the Twin Flame Universe guy, he compelled them to eat a certain kind of diet. He pressured them. In fact, he sold them the food and compelled them to eat it. So he was also making money off of what he was compelling them to eat. And he told them that they had to do this in order for them to, have this goal of meeting their twin flame and blah blah blah. And what's interesting about this, and this has happened in many other cults where they begin to control the body. And in, like, for example, in the Nexium, which was the Keith Raniere high pressure group cult, and Keith Raniere is in Beneath the Skin or Under the Skin is the name of the documentary series on that one. And he actually started to compel the women of his followers to to eat a lot less. They were eating like sometimes 80 calories a day or something, so that they would get really, really, really small. They would lose a lot of weight. Jeff, for whatever reason, and this still just the same technique of controlling the body, he had everyone gain weight. So one of the members, she's in the documentary, and she put on like 70 pounds. It
Oh my
was
God.
wild. And what's interesting about this too that I noticed is that as he was having these people put on weight and eat a certain way and everything, they started to look more like Shalia, his wife, which is really fascinating to me.
It's this, I mean, it's not nice that this is happening, but if you are interested in this kind of thing, it's interesting that in this day and age, we now have everything recorded. And so, Mother God, I was thinking about, you get to see their physical transformation as she's having them eat less and less, because that's what she channeled. And we'll talk about that when we talk about that. But you get to witness it. And same with this, everything's recorded because it's online and they're streaming everything.
Mother God,
But we
by the
get
way,
to,
just to contextualize it, she's referring to another documentary series about another cult, and it's called The
mm.
Mother God or Love Has One Cult. Sorry, go ahead, Carson. I just want to make sure they knew what you're talking about.
yeah. But we get to witness it. So it's not just even something that we've read. We can see it in these people,
Hmm.
the change that happens in not a healthy way.
Yeah.
If they have you buying their programs, listen to their content consistently, and going on their Zooms, so now they verbally are manipulating you, mentally manipulating you, and then physically, I mean, they've got you.
And
They've got
separating
you.
you from your friends and family, telling
Right.
you that the friends and family that they don't understand you, only we do, you
Come live
know.
in my basement. Yeah.
Love, and that always starts with love bombing too. You're special. You, in this case, you have a twin flame. Other people don't have that experience. You're special. So there's love bombing, which is
Which is a typical narcissistic trait, correct?
exactly, yes, that's how narcissists tend to draw in their feed, their
Hmm.
food.
Hmm.
And then therefore that's how they say no one else understands you. And you probably can think of so many different cult
But I
like,
do.
yes, exactly. And they actually had the same response to suicide that they did the same thing that Teal Swan did. I'm going to say it again because Teal was kind of callous. There's at least one story of her being really callous about the fact that someone committed suicide. Well, if you want to do that, then that's your choice, and
We
you'll
should do
just
that documentary.
We
It's a
should, yeah.
documentary.
It's really good. Yeah, we'll do that one. We'll do Mother God. We'll do Nexium. We're gonna have fun.
This is going to be a blast.
Oh, you
Yeah.
know what is another one that's really great? It's called
Hmm.
Holy Hell. Holy Hell.
Oh, I
Have you
know
seen that?
someone who was in that. I've told you
No.
that.
Oh my god.
Mhm.
Kevin, I'm gonna find it. I think it's on Amazon. You'll love this one too because the
Okay.
cool thing about it is as a piece of artwork as a documentary. It was from the 80s that this happened, and
Hmm.
one of their big members was a filmmaker, and so he filmed everything. They have all of this really beautiful footage. They all look like Doublemint commercials from the 80s, like all of this footage.
Wow.
And it's so fascinating.
You know, we're also unique in our own wonderful way. That to strip somebody of that is that's very disrespectful. That's very unhealthy, which is so sad. Instead of us being able to go on a become on a self discovery journey and self mastery,
Hmm.
it's kind of like almost reverse psychology is what they're doing, which is so sad. You
Yeah.
know, I've never spent a day in anybody else's shoes but my own. So how dare I have my opinion on how I think you should be now? I'd rather go with you on a journey of self-discovery than complete reverse psychology, and now I own you. And it's become more transactional
Hmm.
than about empowerment.
Hmm.
How
Yes.
can I upsell you? Now you use my food, now you use my course, now you use my come live with me in my
I mean,
basement.
there's
I mean,
literally a part in the Netflix documentary where he's like, "Oh, churches don't have to pay this tax or whatever," and he's like, "Okay, now well, let's make this more religious," and you get to see that transition about what they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
even when the cops came
Funny.
to talk with him, he said exactly. He said, "I'm not doing anything wrong," because he was right. The system protects what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he is doing wrong. That's a fact. The system is protecting, which is sad, that because he's using that, he's using that for him instead of against him. He's
Yeah.
found that loophole.
But you get to see how he devises how to exploit and manipulate something by saying, "Oh, well, then let's
Mm.
be a church." Yeah, it was really
Yeah, and then he's like, "And now our
Yeah,
message is kind of almost completely different, but that's fine."
right. And honestly, I'm not into the wrong of what we do, the how craft is being used against people. But unfortunately, I have to pay attention because it's a fact
Mm.
in all these documentaries from Mother God and from Twin Flames. I have to start paying attention now because there are those forces out there that are using it in a negative way instead of a positive way, which is so
Mhm.
sad. And that's why we're having this discussion, because it needs to also be revealed the truth.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, and how it can be really
Mhm.
positive and safe.
Right. And
Mhm.
And
safe,
so we're
exactly.
able to tell our clients when they come in, this is how it's different. But for everyone out, like hypnotherapy is magical.
I can't understand. I understand what I did. I don't understand how that worked in them subconsciously.
Mhm.
That so I've got so much evidence and proof of how powerful hypnotherapy is that I don't understand why it's not so more prevalent in therapy.
Mhm.
And why it isn't used more, and why we have to fight for our rights to make it so much more of a practice. We're like the underdogs. Well, how can that be? Yet we've seen um, such dramatic proof and evidence that it works from our
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah. And
So
and I want to point out that it is it was so interesting, Kevin, when you said empowerment. And you said it's basically what they're doing is the antithesis of healing. They're harming, you know what I mean? So it's not empowerment,
Depowering.
it's me
right,
powerment. It's me
Yeah.
powerment.
right.
You just switch the M and the E.
Me, oh my gosh, Carson, me empowerment, exactly. That's the new word, me empowerment. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what this, like cult leaders are doing. They're me
right.
powering. They're not empowering. So the distinction here too is, again, this is why I like to point out, listen, meditation is hypnosis. So likewise, if you go to someone who is a self-ordained meditation teacher, just like, do a little gut check though, because they are hypnotizing you. If you're listening to a recorded track that is someone who guided a meditation, they are hypnotizing you, which may be perfectly fine. I'm definitely not saying like, oh, it's something to be really worried about. I'm just putting us into some clarity here. We are hypnotized all the time, and hypnosis, if you self hypnotize or you meditate, great. Those are great, but just understand that hypnosis is a powerful tool and recognize when it is happening to you.
like, let's say on Insight Timer, there's lots of guided meditations, and I don't
Mhm.
even think they let you use the word hypnosis, right? Even though that's what it is.
They do, but they think no, you can there are hypnosis audios on, Insight Timer, but they make you make a big warning because hypnosis is so different than meditation.
Okay.
It's so silly.
So silly.
Mm,
But I will often listen to the voice. I will kind of
Mhm,
like feel into it. I might skip ahead and be like, is this what I want to hear? Is this what
mhm,
I'm like wanting to
mm,
work on? Because I'll pick maybe a subject, like let's say manifestation or whatever. And I won't go under. I'll listen to it. Like I'll skip forward and be like, no, I'm not really feeling this. Or yeah, this feels in alignment
yeah,
with me.
exactly. Your
it's all your
personal sovereignty.
programming,
Mhm,
right? It's all your programming. Whether you're watching TV and getting programmed, or going to a therapist and getting programmed, it's all about your programming. So choose it
Yeah,
wisely.
choosing.
yeah.
Choose what you ingest.
Mm,
We have one of our colleagues here. This is actually it's Rocky. She identified herself earlier. And Rocky says, yes, indeed, hypnotherapy is powerful. Also, I saw two of my clients going from being suicidal to wanting to live again and feeling empowered. Thank you, Rocky. Thanks for being here.
nice,
Amazing.
Yeah.
nice. Wow.
So the red flag on top of the sundae of this documentary, the cherry on top, the red flag on top is
Mm,
when Jeff and Shalia said that Jeff is actually Jesus. Again, classic, right?
right.
Classic.
That's when you should, well, no, not should. That's when I would be like, wait.
And Trisha, can I share the can I share the clip? Can I share
Thank
the
you.
clip?
Yes, we're going to share a clip of that. Go ahead, Kevin. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic. Absolutely.
And everyone who's listening or watching, human design is a model that it was actually channel. He doesn't use the word channel, but it was channeled or was brought through to us in 1986 by a man who was named Ra Uruhu. And it is a synthesis of four ancient observational modalities and a modern science. So it is a synthesis of astrology, chakra system, the I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, and quantum physics. So it's a powerful, powerful tool. If you have had any kind of resonance with astrology, I mean, in my experience, human design is like on point times at least 5 or maybe 3 trillion because that's the how many neutrinos we're passing through our bodies every second, about 3 trillion. And that's what human design helps us to understand. It really is honestly like a user manual for your being. Like you have a computer manual here, this is the default of your systems. You have these kinds of applications, you have this kind of software, and you have this kind of hardware, right? Carson, is that a pretty good way to
Oh, yeah.
explain it as an
Yeah.
overview?
Yep. I
But a lot of
love the
people who are
operating system
yeah.
analogy. It's the best way to explain it.
So we were looking at Taylor's. Now, one thing that I noticed about Taylor is the one thing is she's often accused of being a humble bragger. You know what I mean? Like someone who's like saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so rich. Oh, how funny." Or like talking about that that's just the word that people use about it. Do you know what do you know what I know we talked about a little bit what I'm talking about with
Hmm.
Taylor?
Hmm.
Yeah. So she has these really interesting qualities that you can see in her chart that would honestly help me to understand why she's accused of false modesty or humble bragging. And one of the aspects is, I would say, the interplay between her defined will and her open solar plexus, plus her 5-1 profile. So this little triangle right here is the will. It's also called the ego center or the heart center, but it's and when this is defined, a person has a strong sense of their ego. And of course, this doesn't mean arrogance, but to someone who it doesn't really understand, it might feel strong to someone, but
Hmm.
in its right function, it's supposed to be like, just a healthy ego. You have a defined will center, Carson. What do you have to say about how that feels? And I think your husband is
Here's an
undefined, right?
example.
Yeah. Hmm.
She was like in yoga last night. I thought this was so interesting. She's like, now you're still, and this might be the part that you tend to get down on yourself during your practice. And I was like, actually, I'm like, you're doing so much better than you did last week. Like, I'm just talking to myself, being like, you've got this. And it doesn't mean that like you are egotistical, but
Mhm.
you know when you have something, you know when you can do something.
Mm.
What she does have, which is really great for you, have this ability to empower others with your experience, with your viewpoint. You bring
Mhm.
things into reality and you know that about yourself. You can feel it. And so
Mhm.
it'll feel off when she's like, wait, what? Wait, you're all here for me?
Yes, very good point. And now
Mm.
see, this is why I say because she has the open emotional center, which makes her the classic empath, which Carson has as well. So I wonder if the times that she's been on, after a performance, this has happened a few times, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm so really?" So I wonder if she's kind of empathically feeling into the audience and feels how some people are, I don't know, maybe insecure or whatever. And so she feels like she needs to downgrade herself, but she has a strong sense of ego. So it
Mhm.
comes off as false modesty, right?
Yeah, it might be that wanting to balance things because I get
Yes.
too that I'm like, oh, but I can feel that they think that I'm a little egotistical, or I can feel this over here, or I feel like they don't feel like they're big enough. And so I
Make
want to,
smaller.
we
Yeah.
always think it's about us. If we change it, then they won't be hurt.
Yeah.
They will not be smaller if we make ourselves smaller. There's this constant balancing of energy that tends to happen with that open
Wow.
emotional solar plexus. So I think you're spot on.
And so but it's like sweet in a way, but it's still misguided. It's not landing correctly. And then that final piece that I was saying is she has a 5-1 profile. So the 5 line is this projection field, as we call it. So that means that she has this large there's this large projection field around Carson, yes. There's a medium compared to Taylor's. Around Taylor. Taylor has so what a projection field is, it's basically when people see her, they see what they want to see, or they're projecting something onto her about themselves. And the 5 line tends to elicit either a savior complex, meaning people like think you're the best and you're perfect and you're a savior, and it's just like not totally human. Or if what they say, the projection field can flip, and then they're like, "You've let us down, you're terrible, you've ruined everything," like demon. And so
Yeah,
that's
like
happening to Taylor sometimes, probably.
Chris calls her the marmite of celebrities. You either love it or you hate it. Not so many people are neutral. I was kind of neutral about her. I like her more that I've watched the documentary, but it is that five
Mhm.
one, and she also that defined will. People will put expectations on too because they can
Mhm.
kind of feel it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's right, the 5 line it receives a lot of expectations. And so those expectations that someone else is feeling about how she should behave or act, and by the way, uh, by all accounts, she's a wonderful person because she
Mhm.
does a lot of charity. She pays really well. I heard that last year because she made so many billions of dollars, she gave everyone on her team, all the way down to the people who drive I don't mean down, but the
Mhm.
example of the people who drive her trucks for her equipment. She gave like the drivers of her trucks $100,000 bonus.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, it's nothing to her. You know what I mean? Like for how much money
But
she
it's
makes,
huge. It's
but
life
it's
changing.
like changing their lives.
Absolutely.
They can
Yeah.
buy homes
Absolutely.
now,
Yeah.
So, and she does a lot of animal rescue work, and and I really do love her music of the last like 5 to 7 years. I think it's fantastic, and she has a great, she's just matured a lot as an artist. That aside, I just thought it would be really interesting to look at all of this openness as well as the areas of definition plus that profile, which is probably the reason why she's sometimes called falsely modest or a humble bragger. Any last thoughts on that, Carson?
I mean, last thoughts are so many. Um, but it's true. I was listening to a daily episode, and it is people are just like these diehard fans, or they just don't get it. And it
Mm.
is that projection field. She can't be seen, which is so interesting as a projector. And she talks a lot in her documentary about how she just wanted to be seen as a good person and how
Yeah.
that mattered so much to her. But she had to go through this transformation. I don't know if she's gotten a human design reading, but it would have been helpful for her to be like, oh, I can't take this personally. They can't actually see me as much as I want to be seen. There's this projection field
Mhm.
there. But she's got all of this openness being a projector that allows her. There's this quote in her documentary that's like, people feel like they grew up with me. People feel like, and I've listened to these quotes from people that they're like, it feels like she's telling my story.
Mm.
And that comes from being a projector, I think, that
Mhm.
ability to see inside someone, that open throat, our ability to speak for other people, amplify other people's communication. She's got this beautiful marketing channel that allows her to be like a spiritual salesman, like the higher evolution of what is in there. She's got the struggle channel. So she likes to share her experiences of what she's gone through, so people will feel that and feel connected to her. And so, of course, you're going to get these diehard fans because people say when you meet her, and that's the projector in her, they feel like they know they're being seen
Mhm.
deeply for the first time. Like they feel like they're her best friend. And so
Mhm.
you're going to have these diehard, like her fans are diehard, and it's
Mhm.
Mm.
getting bigger and bigger with that five. I mean, they say that a lot of five lines tend to be famous.
Mhm.
Um, ugh,
I was just
she's
thinking,
got
or a
so
lot of
much.
famous people are five lines. I was just thinking this morning, like, I don't know how someone who doesn't have a five line can tolerate being famous because it's like they have a projection field anyway. And,
Yeah.
but it's not, it's not, it's probably maybe somewhere there, it's coming on the five line somewhere else in their chart. But for it to not be like their dominant profile, I just can't imagine because it's hard enough having a five line to feel that pressure and that flipping of the projection field that happens. So, yeah. And Michelle Tyson says, human design is so interesting. I need to learn more. Yes, it is. And Carson is a brilliant human design guide. So, Kevin, I know you're just
Hmm.
starting to get. We've just been talking to you about human design a little bit. Did you have any questions or thoughts about what we're talking about, or just soaking it in?
No, I'm fascinated by it. I believe in it because it all makes sense. None
Mm-hmm.
of this is kind of off chart. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I can admit I went to go watch her documentary,
You want
and
to
I
go
was
watch? Yeah.
no, I watched it. I watched it. I was impressed. I was like, wow. I mean, because I'd heard all this talk. I didn't know who she was. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. So a
Mm-hmm.
friend of mine said, well, she actually invited me and my best friend to go watch Taylor Swift documentary with her. So we went,
Oh, the
and
concert
the concert,
in
yeah,
the theater.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I was sorry, the concert, and I was blown away. I was actually dancing. So
Mm-hmm.
in the theater, I'm dancing because you just kind of, you go with the flow. It's very easy, it's not combative. So I was
That
having a
is
lot of fun. I was,
an
I was
interesting
dancing.
concert to watch because you really see her G center, open G center
Yeah, it was impressive.
Yeah.
musician she goes through the eras. And it's like it's a total costume change and then a different costume change. And she's all these different people because she has that chameleon malleability, that plus the
Mm.
marketing, knowing what people want, plus sharing that part of her journey. But she has even quotes about how often women have to reinvent themselves. And there is an aspect of this, but I think
Mm.
that G Center also wants to do that depending on where she is in her life.
Yeah.
My my
Um,
my friend went 4 times in a row to a concert the so far. I think it was 4 or 5. I mean, she went every single time. So fans like that they're diehard. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Taylor's doing something good, something great.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Amazing person, amazing human, and yeah, really amazing, interesting chart. I think I love this discussion. Lacey says, Trisha, you keep mentioning a five line. Are you referring to her profile? Yes, 5-1. I'm a projector 5-3. So interested. Yes, she's a 5-1. That's her profile. Hmm.
I want to say one more thing about her five line, which is being able to see her step into that. She lets go a little bit of this emotional solar plexus worrying about pleasing and steps more into the bullshit detector of five line when she starts to talk about politics and say what stand up for people. And she
Mm.
really, you get to watch that transition in her music when she starts calling people out um, in her lyrics.
Yeah,
She,
her
I,
ex-boyfriends mostly.
Yeah. But, like, people all the time Trisha will say something, I'll be like, "Oh, that was so 5 of you," because you, like, will not stand for people's bullshit,
Mm.
and you'll be like, "I'm gonna say something." Like, I'm like, "I don't want to.
Mm.
You
I
do
know.
that."
Carson, I know it.
Like,
And
"It's okay."
my husband's a 3-5, so he has the 5 line too. So when Carson goes, "Oh, that's so 5 line of you," I'm like, "What part?" Because to me, it's so in my home, we're all it's like almost every day. I come home to Brian, Brian home comes home to me, and we're like, "Hey, you want to hear what this bullshit happened?" And either we're like, "That's bullshit." So
It's
Carson,
the heretic is what it's called in
that's right.
traditional human design,
And
but
so it's just so normal to me that when Carson's like, "That was so 5 line of you," I'm like, "Which part?" It all felt normal.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, this has been really fun, and I have to go. I want to go to the next concert with you, to Taylor Swift concert with Kevin, because I want to see him dance.
Same.
All right,
I was
everyone.
having fun.
Yeah, we're having fun here on Conscious
Hmm.
Time. So everyone, thank you so much for listening or watching. We're kicking off this brand new podcast. We've got some more research to do, again, some investigation, but we want to keep talking to you about this, talking about some other different things. But this, again, this podcast, Conscious Times, is intended. Our intention here is this will be your place for energy updates, as well as, your source, your resource for this consciousness age that we're in. That's where we are. We went from industrial age to information age. We are now in the consciousness age. And the best thing we can do is to have
Awesome.
personal sovereignty and
Mm.
spiritual sovereignty, because that's where we are. That's just, otherwise we'll be vulnerable to our sovereignty being utilized by someone else, from
Mm.
someone wanting to turn empowerment into me powerment for their benefit.
So good.
Well, this is Carson Doherty. Carson and Kevin, will you tell people how they can get in touch with you? And actually, if you want to put your websites in the chat right now, it will go on the live feed, and and tell us the work that you're doing and how people can be in touch with you. Kevin is practicing as a hypnotherapist right now, for
Right.
sure. Tell
Right.
us all
And
about it.
I'm literally about 2 months away from graduating as a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm excited about that. So I can go into that dimension of the field. I focus on peak performance. So my clients are doctors, artists, and actors and writers, and then tennis players for sports and football players. So that's why I'm more focused on the empowerment aspect of them. They normally come to me looking to someone to double their income, double their sales projections, and so forth. So my coaching background has allowed me now to use hypnotherapy then to go into, I'm like a success coach for the subconscious mind.
Hmm.
I'm able to then empower their minds. Some people want to be like Kobe Bryant. I'm like, okay, great. I'll create a live script of Kobe Bryant. I'll send it off to them. I'll say, is this who Kobe Bryant is in your eyes? Because it has to resonate with them.
Yeah.
And then when they come see me for their sessions, then I'll use those message units, that programming in their subconscious to make them, be like Kobe Bryant if they want to. Hey, more power to you. If that's what you want, let's do it. So and then I'll put and then that's literally, I'm more on a peak performance basis, guys. So that's why I like you, Trish and Carson. You're a little more spiritual for me. But then again, that helps because I need to learn. I'm all about self mastery. So
Yes,
thank
self
you.
mastery. Exactly. That's
Mm.
the same. Another way to say personal and spiritual sovereignty. Yeah, so I
Oh, I
absolutely,
love that.
yeah. And Carson, and I'm going to put you. There's Carson. Kevin, put in the comments part there. Put in
Okay,
your website or something like that. No, yeah. Go
thank you.
ahead, Carson.
Well, I combine hypnotherapy with human design, spiritual teaching, and manifesting and all of the good stuff. It's just, for me, it's really about feeling like the most powerful version of yourself, the best version of yourself, just feeling better. I went on a journey of having some anxiety and depression, not like needing a ton of therapy or anything, but just feeling kind of like on edge, not understanding, and being a little dissatisfied. And spirituality brought me into starting to feel better. And I've been working with Trisha for years. She's my mentor. So we have a lot of the same modalities because I learned from her. But then I went through a big autoinflammatory flare, and hypnotherapy and human design is really what brought me out of that. And I was like, I need to add those into spiritual coaching. And I just like teaching people that life can be more magical and you can bring in
Mm.
ease. And that's my speciality,
I like it.
speciality,
I like it.
special ability, making up words all over the place today. Um, as a projector, is teaching people a little bit more about being, and ease and self-care and um, magic. And yeah, that's what I like to do.
Wonderful. Well, that's us, everyone. And if you don't know me, I'm Trisha Carr, and I'll make sure that the show notes are updated with all of our information. I'm a spiritual teacher, and this is on my YouTube channel right now. We will be starting a podcast feed for Conscious Times very soon, but for now, you can consider this your hub for it, and this, you might be listening to it on the Charmed Life podcast. And so we will see you very soon. Join the mailing list, join my mailing list, and like and click the bell and all of that kind of stuff, so that you can keep on top of when we're going to do more of these. So this is Conscious Times, everyone. We will see you again next time. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Trisha. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Carson.
Cheers, everyone.